He didn't like the word Alexander technique, but we students said it had to have a name. But it is, in fact, a way of thinking that helps you really make the best of how you are in whatever you want to do. So it's nothing fixed. It's something moving all the time. But his findings was to do with the head-neck balance, that being the most important of all, that you were in balance. And so his teaching was to inhibit your habitual use of tension or use of doing any activity, and to allow the neck to be free, the back to lengthen and widen, to do whatever activity you please. And he liked it applied to living. So that was the utmost thing, the thinking of the balance of the head on the top of the spine, which as all animals and all vertebrates have to do. You see that horse jumping, it has to be leading with the head. Mind you, posture, I looked in the dictionary, it's a perfectly good word. Posture can mean a lot of things, but most people, posture means stiffening up. And it isn't about that at all. It's about being free. I first had lessons with Alexander in 1937, quite a long time ago, and it was delightful. He had a very nice chair, and he'd just stand in front of this chair, and I want you to sit down, but before you sit, I want you to think of where you are in this room, and I want you to just think of not tightening your head as you sit. And he would have a light hand on there. And of course, to start with, one did pull one's head back to sit. So he would guide you into a better way. For instance, coming up from sitting, he would show you how not to come up by pushing with your legs and pulling your head back, but by leading with the head, allowing your back to help you come up, just as the way that horse is allowing its back to spring across the jump. It's, again, those lessons were him. He had wonderful hands, and it felt as though he was just letting you float up out of the chair. And that's the sort of thing why it started with sitting and standing. It's basic to everything you do. It's basic to dance, it's basic to Pilates, it's basic to all these other things. You can do them much better if you're in freedom. He was reciting, and he would lose his voice after a certain length of time, and the medics couldn't fix that, so he decided to watch himself. And he did that quite a long time, and he noticed how when he came to recite or came to think, that he would tighten his neck and tighten his legs or his feet and so on, that he would put on more tension than he did in his day-to-day activities. And he gradually noticed how the difficulty was the stop. He saw what he was doing wrong, but the difficulty was to stop that habit pattern. And he stopped that habit pattern by what he called inhibiting momentarily his desire to speak. And that's where his word inhibit comes in. It's not the usual, oh, you're inhibited, not that, but the stopping the habitual response to the stimulus. And that's basically what his technique is about. Primary control is slightly misused because, again, people tend to think of it as a head balance on the top of the spine, but it's all, again, in movement. And I think sometimes people think, oh, let's get the primary control. We're always in movement. And the primary control, yes, is the balance of the head on the top of the spine up here. But we've got all these different things going on. We're breathing all the time, and that will be changing. So it's nothing, again, fixed, the primary control. Very important part of the teaching. I do find the experience that people get from the individual lesson of a hands-on lesson is helpful, because that's how I was taught originally. But I also think that groups remembering what is most beneficial is to be noticing where they are, noticing what's going on in themselves, and that sort of thing is so incredibly helpful. It's not just coming and having a one-to-one lesson and learning how to do this in the best possible way. It's applying it to what you want to do. And I think that's one of the most important lessons. When he first came to this country, he worked enormously with actors and actresses. He would go to the theatres and actually work with them before they went on stage and so on. And he got a great name for where he helped people then. So that it was not, I've no idea, I wasn't here then, but that's what he would do. But from then he got, he worked with a lot of children who had breathing problems like tuberculosis or something, and had been taught to breathe in this sort of way. And he got the name of being the breathing man. A lot of doctors got interested in his work, and it grew in that way. As a Wethels educationalist, he had a well-known head of school that said it ought to be in all the schools, that type of thing. So he had a very, very wide circle of people, because it's basic to life.
As my mother said, one of the great delights is the huge range of people that come for lessons. I do teach across the range. Some people who just feel life's not quite as nice as it could be, so in the kind of self-development line. Some with aches and pains, difficulties, tension-related disorders. But I work quite a lot with musicians and singers, although I'm absolutely not a musician or a singer. So I really enjoy that. It's like music by proxy. And in a way it's quite interesting there, because then the techniques don't muddle each other. So when I'm working with a classical musician, there's no danger that I'm going to be trying to give them my idea about how to play the violin, but more how they use themselves to get the best out of what they're doing. And I work with dancers, as I say, more as a movement teacher, and then I bring Alexander principles in. It's interesting that you ask about whether the body, since I've been teaching, which is 20 years, is different. I don't really know about that, and I suppose that that's where what's included in the term body is maybe quite interested. At the physical level, I don't know, but I do think there is a cultural and different perception, so it is more at an intellectual and thinking level, where there is a much quicker understanding, because it's already here, of psychophysical unity, of the fact that thinking affects the physical, affects the emotional, the whole interweave, which is even coming into conventional science now, sort of finally, and that definitely wasn't the case in Alexander's day. So it was radical to talk about those things being combined, and you're not doing just your physical education and then your academic work and having nothing to do with the emotions if you possibly could help it. You know, that is a very different state that people come. So my experience, and I can't quite tell if it's that my experience in teaching, is that people are much, much quicker, more sensitive, quicker to respond and understand the possibilities. Teaching of the technique has improved and developed, obviously, over the time it's being taught and people are being trained. And sometimes I notice that's a hard thing for people who trained with Alexander to accept as an idea, because his was the ultimate teaching. And I agree that, but I think the actual pedagogy has improved immensely as people have looked for ways, how can we communicate these principles. Alexander has various ways of sort of summing up his work, and one of my favourites is when he calls it the study of human reaction. And I think that obviously how we study and how we work with human reaction is going to change as life changes.
Alexander nous a transmis ce qu'il a observé et expérimenté pour venir à bout de son problème vocal. Il s'est révélé que ce sont des lois de fonctionnement de nous-mêmes, de notre corps et de notre pensée, découvertes par lui dans l'expérience. Comment transmettre les fruits d'une recherche sans la fixer, sans la figer par des mots? Je propose plutôt aux danseurs des expériences plutôt que des directives. Je leur propose des situations, des actions dans lesquelles ils pourront s'observer. Que font-ils? Que perçoivent-ils? Sans jugement de valeur, bien entendu, tout simplement. Peuvent-ils trouver une autre solution? Et encore une autre, plus facile peut-être. Petit à petit, je leur demande de porter leur attention sur une partie du corps, ou sur une qualité de mouvement, par exemple sur la fluidité de la colonne vertébrale, sur sa longueur. Est-ce que dans une marche, par exemple, très rapide, dans une foule, est-ce que la colonne vertébrale se tasse, ou au contraire, est-ce qu'elle peut rester plus longue? Est-ce que la fluidité est préservée par cette longueur? Toutes ces expériences qui, petit à petit, vont nous amener à entrevoir le contrôle primaire. Qu'est-ce que le contrôle primaire? Pour moi, c'est la poutre maîtresse de la technique. Dans les termes alexandériens, c'est une certaine relation entre la tête, le cou et le dos qui se prolonge jusqu'au sol et permet d'accueillir la gravité et de laisser agir les forces organiques antigravitaires. Comment découvrir ce qui entrave cette force? Je propose cette image que vous voyez avec une ligne derrière le corps. Cette ligne représente ce que nous avons tous expérimenté, vécu, tiens-toi droit. Et nous la retrouvons même quand nous nous sentons quelquefois affaissés et que d'un seul coup, nous voulons nous redresser. Ensuite, je montre cette image-là. Et là, vous voyez comment la ligne de gravité traverse le corps pour permettre justement de donner cette réponse organique antigravitaire. Pour atteindre le contrôle primaire, je dirais même pour s'accorder, Alexander a une phrase qui est très importante et qu'on peut se répéter à chaque instant comme une petite ritournelle, qui est d'étendre les muscles du cou pour permettre à la tête d'aller en avant et vers le haut, à la colonne de s'allonger et au dos de s'élargir. C'est une façon d'accorder son instrument et on retrouve toutes les directions, en avant et vers le haut, la largeur, la profondeur parce qu'on sent la force de la gravité. Et une chose aussi qui est peut-être la plus importante chez Alexander, c'est que cette présence de la colonne, du support qu'elle nous donne, nous permet de rester avec nous-mêmes et de ne pas nous disperser et de ne pas répondre ou réagir très vite à une situation. Et c'est ce support qu'il faut travailler toujours pour que ça soit un support mobile, flexible et non rigide et tenu. Introduire un court espace, un suspense, un blanc, un silence entre le stimulus, la pensée, et la réponse, le corps. Pendant ce court instant, où tout est possible, Alexander propose toujours de revenir à ce que j'appelle la petite ritournelle, d'étendre les muscles du cou pour permettre à la tête d'aller en avant et vers le haut, au dos, à la colonne de s'allonger et au dos de s'élargir. Ce qui permet, dans ce petit instant, de se retrouver soi-même et d'avoir toutes les possibilités de décision. Si je m'arrête là, par exemple, je m'arrête là, je me dis, tiens, est-ce qu'il y a des choses qui peuvent se détendre ? Où est-ce que j'ai mon poids ? Je me pose des questions, je me parcours. Et puis après, je pense que je détends les muscles du cou, mon dos s'allonge et s'élargit, et puis ça va peut-être me faire partir ailleurs. La grande question d'Alexander, c'est qu'est-ce qui m'empêche de faire, pas comment faire. Donc c'est dans ces choses-là que tu peux comment déjouer ses habitudes. En s'arrêtant, en se trouvant des situations, comme je te dis, se mettre au mur pour trouver autre chose que pousser une réponse habituelle, etc. Mais l'inhibition en soi, c'est le petit moment. Alexander dit où tu réponds, comme d'habitude si tu veux, tu ne réponds pas, ou bien tu vas du connu vers l'inconnu. Je crois qu'une fois on est entré dans cette technique, on ne peut plus la dissocier. Je ne peux plus la dissocier et de ma vie professionnelle et de ma vie quotidienne parce que, en fait, c'est peut-être justement dans la vie quotidienne que j'ai le plus de temps et le plus d'opportunités de mettre tous ces principes en mouvement.